The US government has committed acts that are extremely unjust, hideous, and criminal through its support of the Israeli occupation of Palestine.
Said it appeared to bank sharply.
We believe the US is directly responsible for those killed in Palestine, Lebanon, and Iraq. Due to its subordination to the Jews, the arrogance of the United States regime has reached the point that they occupied Arabia, the holiest place of the Muslims, who are more than 1 billion people in the world today.
He is representative of networks of people who absolutely have made their cause to defeat the freedoms that we understand, and we will not allow him to do so. I want him held. I want justice. And there's an old poster out west, as I recall, that said "Wanted, dead or alive."
That's George Bush talking like he's John Wayne, ready to go on this hunt for bin Laden. And they did. But from my perspective, being a kindergartner at the time and having a very political grandfather, I remember the news coverage of the Tora Bora escape of bin Laden. And I remember the way it was framed as if it was some sort of like Waco siege. But the truth of that is that it's not. They let him go. And by they, I mean Bush, Rumsfeld, the whole thing. And whether it was on purpose or whether it was for, other motives, I bear to ask the question, is watching the events of 2021, was this all just a waste of time? So that's the question. What happened in Tora Bora? How do you have the world's most wanted terrorist in a corner on a map and he escapes?
Word secrecy is repugnant, inherently and historically, opposed to secret society, to secret oaths.
I think throughout the course of American history, every generation has their image or video of a major event that is always kind of just there. Pearl Harbor shaped an entire generation to want to go to war. The recording of John F. Kennedy's assassination, public, and shaped an entire generation's thought process on the United States government. Long before JFK, there was the Tulsa race massacres. This is one of the worst examples of racial violence in American history. The images of burnt bodies and the wave of how it went around America would later turn into the events of the Civil Rights Movement in the 1950s. All of these events, major points in American history, televised, and children like myself seeing 9/11 on a roll-in TV in kindergarten, thinking that we're watching Training Day or Die Hard, right? These images, and the reason I'm showing them to you is because this is what shapes generations. This is what shapes thought process. This is what shapes decisions. This is what shapes how you view a country or how you view a certain culture. And the reason I say that is because I'm not saying that Osama bin Laden by any means was a great person or had any providence of meaning in the world, but maybe the motives for 9/11 weren't so as clear as just him being mad that you can see your girlfriend and go to the mall with her, because it's much deeper than that. And after 9/11, it is apparently clear that they were hunting for him. And the story of Tora Bora is quite possibly confusing yet incredible that it all could have ended just months after 9/11. wouldn't have had to extend it out for almost 2 decades. It cost thousands of Americans their lives and hundreds of thousands of civilians in the Middle East their lives. And the way that we ended it in 2021 just kind of just made me feel as if it was for nothing, because in 2013 I was willing to go. I wanted to go. 30-year-old me now is like, hell nah, that shit don't make no sense. So what happened in Tora Bora? Okay, well, who is Osama bin Laden? Well, he's the leader of a terrorist organization called al-Qaeda, which is basically just the CIA for the Saudi nationals. He's the son of a billionaire oil tycoon, and he basically did not like America because they funded money to Israel that, slaughtered Muslims in the regions of the Middle East, and he sought revenge. And basically, guys, if you didn't know, bin Laden knew that Bush and his daddy, wanted conflict in the Middle East because they used bin Laden to basically drain the USSR while Russia fought the Afghans in the Afghani-Russian conflict, and he knew that he could do that to America, and essentially that's what happened, and you saw it in 2021. Just wanted to get that out of the way. And you also can't forget about that connection with the Bushes and that
Trying to get that
Yeah, Dave Chappelle was correct on all that. But you see, here's where I have a lot of issues when it comes to 9/11. And no, I'm not like a, building 7 type guy. I'm more of like a pay attention to the money and where everything's going type guy. And it is a known fact and is reported fact that bin Laden was trapped on a mountaintop in the Tora Bora region of the White Mountains at the border of the, border in Pakistan.
Today, Junior?
So here's the thing. They had America took Kabul within days, which is the capital of Afghanistan. And CIA Jawbreaker team led by Gary Berntsen and a handful of U.S. Special Forces guys, like, Delta Force guys. They arrived and started coordinating airstrikes. I mean, you could see it here. Like, they're the Taliban and al-Qaeda are like extremely happy that it's happening because this is the plan. And in one of these strikes, it is rumored that bin Laden was hit and injured, and he sent out a massive message to his al-Qaeda members, basically saying that he would have to leave and flee to Pakistan. But this message was intercepted by the CIA, and they had his exact coordinates. Like if you just look at the mountaintop and see the Rolls Royce up there, you might be able to tell where bin Laden is, but he wasn't in a Rolls Royce. Bin Laden was using the ancient passages and caves that had been used for thousands of years in this area. I mean, the Silk Road from China came through Afghanistan. And these same caves and passages are the reason that the Russians failed so horribly in their attempt to occupy Afghanistan, and would later result in our also failures at attempt to, turn Afghanistan into a democracy. But this was different. They knew exactly where he was, or at least a general area, right? And the CIA would report that they would enter caves and there would still be like food or cigarette butts that were hot, or guns, as if like someone heard them coming and just quietly slipped down the mountain. Forgot to also tell you, this whole operation is called Operation Enduring Freedom. And by this time, it was only 2 months old. It was being ran by General Tommy Franks and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. And they kind of just insisted on light footprinting this situation and kind of depending on these Afghani warlords to find bin Laden. And by December 11th or the 17th of 2001, Dalton Fury's Delta team and Afghani allies assaulted ridge lines, and terrain was not their friend. Afghanistan is beautiful, but it is just rugged. I mean, it just looks brutal. The snow, the altitude, the caves linked by tunnels. And by this time, bin Laden's bodyguards, they began retreating towards the Tara Valley en route to Pakistan, and Afghani militias and other groups guarding these passages to Pakistan, they were growing tired and exhausted. And many of these passages and tunnels that led straight to Pakistan were abandoned by these militia groups and warlords because they were either bribed or scared or, many other reasons, but it failed. And with the help of Pakistani tribes along the border of Afghanistan, bin Laden and his al-Qaeda homeboys would sneak into Pakistan, where he would remain for the next 10 years until his death in 2011. Now, I'll start this off by saying if that is the narrative that you believe, that is a narrative I sort of believe. I believe that bin Laden escaped, but I do not believe that he escaped on his own or by chance or by bad luck on the Americans' end. But you can't tell me that after the 9/11 attacks and having bin Laden trapped on the mountains of Tora Bora in December, a few months after 9/11, that American commanders begging for troops to block mountain passages, and you send Afghani warlords and random people to block passages, and they don't have any money and they grow old and tired and not wanting, and some were bribed and some even let guards and al-Qaeda members through the trails. I mean, is it not a joke that the Bush administration stated that they did not want a long-term ground war in Afghanistan? And 20 years later, we were still there. And people like Scott Horton argue that letting bin Laden slip away, the government kept the war on terror going, which helped justify more spending and more wars and years of so-called intervention in the Middle East. Like an excuse within an excuse. The cost of this was enormous. 2,400 Americans died in Afghanistan, and over 46,000 Afghan nationals were killed. More than 69,000 Afghan army and police died fighting the Taliban, and the U.S. spent around $2 trillion over 20 years trying to rebuild a country that collapsed as soon as America left. In 2021, when we left, the Taliban retook power in just days, much like we did in 2001. The Abbey Gate bombing during the final evacuation killed 13 United States service members. They were the last ones to die in Afghanistan before we literally drove out in planes with Afghan nationals stringing to the side, some reporting that they were able to hold on mid-flight and were seen falling from the sky. Just a horrific sight to see. And all that, 20 years of war and IEDs and funerals and soldiers dying, and bin Laden was killed in 2011. What was all this for? What were we doing? I guess we'll never know.
If you ain't subscribed, then hit that subscribe button like it owes you rent money. Hit that damn button like it just talked back in a Kmart parking lot, and that will make a ninja happy.